Hello and a very warm welcome back to my permaculture kitchen garden, where I'm focusing on a lot of polyculture, a lot of annuals and a lot of perennials. And it's currently mid-summer and I am very excited to kind of give you a little bit of an update. It's been a tough start of growing season. I'm least happy with the Polytunnel because I had to replant one of the beds 4 times because of slug damage, and then I finally got around to getting nematodes and stuff like that, and everything, touch wood, is sorted. So I'm going to kind of start off in this corner here where there is quite a lot happening. This is more of like a perennial corner. So I've got a thornless blackberry which is going a little bit crazy, so I'm starting to train it up and against the larch clad fencing here, and it's looking like we're actually going to get quite a few fruits, which I'm looking forward to because it's a very kind of new plant. And then here I've got all sorts going on. Rose in the back, this is a James Grieve apple, and then I've got things like this is a kind of a Japanese type of non-stinging nettle which you eat the leaves as a really nice kind of spring vegetable. And then various things like Caucasian spinach and little bits of yarrow and just pops of everything. I've got some Verbena boreensis, if that's how you say it, and so lots of diversity, Aztec broccoli, tree spinach, and then in the front here we have Angelica. So this Angelica is going to get really nice and big, add some big structure. I've got this is a purple tree kale, so this is a perennial kale. Underneath this here is a yacon that is coming through, and then we've got Chinese violet cress. This is lovely Chinese artichoke, and then oca, and then a little bergamot. And what I'm trying to do is I want to add like little pops of colour throughout the garden, especially for pollinators and stuff, which kind of leads me nicely into this corner. So this corner, again, this is very much heavily focused on perennials, but there are a few annuals in here. I've got these little tiny things growing underneath. These are asparagus pea, and I haven't tried those before. Sam seems to like them, so I'm excited to try them. And I've got all sorts of things like this beautiful bronze fennel. We've got some nice lovage, red sorrel dock, good King Henry, amaranth, Malva spinach. So you can like really see the perennial side coming through. And if I just pop down here and slightly push the door out of the way, here, because I want another like cascade of colour, this is a nasturtium, which I've also planted alongside a Vietnamese coriander. And then because I want even more colour in the foreground, this is really starting to, like this time next month, this is going to be absolutely popping. I got a couple of different bergamots. This one here, which is quite dark, is called Perennial, and I'm very excited about that one. And then we've got Tumbling Tom tomato, of which there were a few tomatoes within starting to form. And this again utilising the corner of the bed. I've got Nigella, I've got Korean mint, agastache, I've got cosmos, I've got yarrow, I've got calendula, and then in the back here is zinnia. So this is going to be an absolute pop of colour, and I kind of wanted to work with layers because kind of in a permaculture garden you can take some of the ideas of a forest garden and then apply it here. So in terms of layers, this is almost like going to act as a bit of like a slightly lower canopy and higher canopy. I'm getting that effect by using different sized raised beds. So this is the taller Vigo garden, and then this is just a much smaller raised bed, but you can kind of see that it's creating that nice, like just a nice flow. And then this here would be like almost like the upper canopy layer. So with permaculture, it's not a rule book, it's just kind of giving you a set of principles, a set of ideas and guidelines that you can then create and design spaces that work for you. So this part of the garden is kind of the tail end of the herb bed. So you can see this lemon verbena coming through, borage is looking lovely, this nasturtium is looking lovely. And then here I've got carrots and I've got sunflowers. Now a couple of the sunflowers are pretty happy. This one got very, very slugged, but I'm just gonna let it live. It's there, it's occupying the space. And then on this bottom part of this cascade garden, I've got alpine strawberries, which I just think will will be really nice. And again, another Chinese violet crest. So packing in as much as I can. In terms of the hotbed, very productive start to the season. I've now got 2 big spaghetti squashes that are growing really well. I found I've got these squash here, and I found that the squash at the start of the season, for like many weeks, they just sat there and they just weren't growing whatsoever, and finally they're starting to grow. So here I've got things like jumbo pink banana and blue banana squash, which I really like. And so I've got squash here, squash in the hotbed, and within the hotbed I've just put in a couple of little cucumber plants just to see how they do. I've got many things that I can put in, but it's been very productive at the start of the season. Then in this corner, this is quite interesting. This here is a perennial, well, it's almost like a perennialized runner bean. I kept some of the runner bean tubers. Runner beans naturally are a perennial. Runner bean tubers in the ground. They resprouted. I put a couple of others out, and they've just started growing. So that's really fun. And then behind here is a Japanese wineberry, which I'm going to have to think about taming soon, because you can see that's all growth that it's actually put in the last probably like 2 or 3 weeks. So the idea is next year this will be trained up against the wall, and it'll add some really nice like red colour over winter, because the stem's like a nice kind of vivid red, so that'll add some nice winter interest. Then sweet peas. I adore sweet peas. I wish I actually grew more this year elsewhere in the garden, but these have been really quite a nice little highlight. And then corner here, few interesting different things. This is wild or perennial basil with some really nice little flowers. Got some cosmos, globe artichoke, mashua, and then something that I've installed recently is this Gardenia wall mounted hose box, just so it's easier, because it's connected to the tank around the other side, just so it's easier when it's dry to go and water. The only issue is we've had a lot of rain, so I haven't had to use it that much, but I know it's there. It kind of brings peace of mind. So I'm now at the kind of like the entrance part of the garden, and in tubs I've got potatoes growing, and inside is Sapo Java, which apparently is better than Sapo Mira, so I'm trying that out. And then when I do my what to sow videos, all of the comments like, it's like playing bingo, or yes, you said Sapo Mira potatoes. Well, it might be changing, so stay tuned. Then a couple of compost bins. One is pretty chock-a-block, the other one is about half full. So that, coinciding with the hotbed, is going to produce probably all of the compost that I need in this garden. Now down in this corner, I've got this fennel that I actually transplanted, and this is herb fennel, and this is looking really nice. A row of celery at the back, just to kind of utilise the fact that it is darker, and the celery is looking lovely. And then in the front here, quite a few different things happening. My Brussels sprouts for winter, asparagus, which I've underplanted with strawberries, and then this is a massive spring cabbage that I'm kind of just letting it do its thing and see what happens. And then behind here, this is my second sowing of field beans, so when the other ones, which you'll see later on, are finished, these will then take over. And behind the field beans, within this structure, is a tomato. It is called Mountain Magic. It is said to be very resistant to blight, and I'm not pruning it. I'm kind of just confining it within this mesh, and we'll see how it does. But it's looking pretty good. Now, one of my absolute highlights is always, this was a bit of evidence, but this was the leek bed, and I love leeks. Like, what a staple for me. But I always love to leave a few leeks to flower, and these leeks, I love the idea of utilising corners of beds and using corners as a way to add diversity into the garden. Like here, I've got another tree spinach. That colour, that pop of, like, it's not a flower, that's just the colour of the leaves, but it acts like a flower. Underneath I've got Tom thumb peas, so like pint-sized peas, and then there's zinnias and nasturtiums underneath, and this is like utilising corners to add a lot of interest. And wow, these smell amazing. And again, sometimes vegetable gardens can feel quite flat, and so by allowing some things to grow taller and flower adds that height interest. I'll be doing that to one of these fennels as well. I'll be allowing one of them to just grow and flower and occupy that space. And then here we've got mangle wurzel or mangle beet, so the idea is to grow them huge. Stephanie Hafty, I remember her saying that she makes a really nice wine out of them, so I'll definitely be asking Sam very kindly if he can try to make a nice wine out of them. And then other things here, dwarf beans, radish, and root chicory, amaranth, etc. And then so much food happening. Here we've got actually needs an onion, so we've got the onion corner here. At the moment there's a lot of things that are going to be changing around. I've got lots of brassicas in 1 litre pots, so those are going to start to occupy the space, and I've got to find some space to plant out my leeks. And then in the front here, where there were 4 lovely cauliflowers, I've planted a couple of dahlias and then some herbs, and these here, these are not dwarf beans. Well, they are dwarf beans, but they're not dwarf French beans. These are Hestia dwarf runner beans that I'm going to give a little bit of a go. And then finally here, Charlotte potatoes, one of my absolute favourites. And I'm going to I need some more potatoes again. I'm going to see, yeah, look. And this is amazing. Look at all these. Again, they've just yielded absolutely amazingly. All of that from one plant, and I'm not even finished yet. So there is always lots of things growing on, and where I have currently gaps, I've got seedlings that need to go out and more seeds to sow, and it's just this constant, it's really nice, it's this constant kind of cycle of things coming out, new things going in. The perennial herb border is looking lovely. I'm really pleased with how all that is doing. And this is a parsnip that, well, really now it's going to seed, but I kind of love this more kind of golden light, or this golden colour that's adding to it. So that's going to stay for now. And I was thinking I quite like a bit of structure here. So the plan B to replace this height is this red arch that will then take this space once the parsnip comes out. So just again, think about height. 4-hook giant chard, an absolute beauty. I'm going to let it grow another month or so before I start harvesting, but it really does live up to its name. These here are the field beans. These are the first, kind of going to be the first batch of field beans that are looking absolutely lovely. And then within this space, quite a few things. I've got more beetroot coming through. This here is a purple cauliflower that's going to be coming through. I got this from She Grows Veg, so the idea is that this is going to then occupy this space. Edible lupins. Behind you can't quite see it, but there's a more of a bush tomato variety. And then in front I've done half and half of Greek gigantes and runner beans, which is looking really lovely, and I love how they wish they could still grow on, but I don't prune them or anything. I just let it be nice and wild. And then I kind of just jump behind, because here again, trying to utilize the corners. This is Wakatai black mint, so this is coming through nicely, and underneath I've got a bit of like nice nigella and some zinnias and stuff, just to again add more colour, add more diversity. So my goal for this garden is for it to feel like a jungle, but a very productive, beautiful jungle. Here in these 2 beds, so in front of the field beans, I've got some more Sarpa Javas. These are planted a little bit later than the ones in the buckets, and they're starting to come through. Some dwarf French beans, and then radish. So I've got some summer radish, and then here is my first sowing of daikon radish, or mouli, and I adore this, and it is so productive, and this is the first sowings of many that are going to occupy this garden. They grow quickly. I'll be able to harvest a lot of them over September and October, and it's just a really nice way to get a lot of food from a small space. Now, I hadn't actually planted any courgettes, and then I was like, you know what, I do need one courgette. So I bought this plant, and it is starting to form a little bit of fruit and stuff. So that's fun. Then the absolute staple of any permaculture garden, the Asturian tree cabbage. This beautiful thing. It's a short-lived perennial. It can live for about 3 years. The flower shoots are really, really lovely. You want to pick that flower shoot so it maintains its perenniality, if that is a word. And really, really tasty, sweet leaves. So this is all happening here. Bit of nigella. We've got some peas here in the foreground, some peas in the background. Those have been slugged a little bit, but I don't blame them. But just to the right of them is some wasabi mustard, and it is starting to get into production. So I'm going to have a little taste of the leaves soon. And then I've planted Phacelia underneath just to kind of add a bit of life to that space. Some more celery. This again is, I've got the name here actually, it's the Sicilian violet cauliflower from She Grows Veg. So I've got that here. Now the thing that surprised me the most is this triffid. This here is Mashua. So Mashua is also known as a perennial nasturtium, and it's a climber and a creeper at the same time. So it's really good for ground cover, and now it's starting to climb up this structure. So what I'm actually going to have to do is to come in and prune it back a bit just to open up a little bit of space, because I had put a chard in here, but it's not looking too happy. So I'm going to have to cut this back a bit, but this is good biomass to put on the compost. And probably the saddest thing that happened for me in the last couple of weeks is that something had snapped this. In here was a yacon, and it's about this tall, and something snapped it, which I'm really gutted about, but it's starting to resprout. So I'm looking forward to that. I've got this stuff underneath. This is just like they are wool pellets and woolen mulch from gardening naturally. This is just to help keep down with slugs, which has helped, because the snap looked like, I don't know, wind or something, because it had been quite stormy. So this bed, again, at the back here there is a bit of slug damage with the dahlias, but I'm gonna just let them, like the slugs are on top, they're showing new growth. I'm just gonna let them grow. A couple of them are looking very nice, so I'm happy with those. Here I've created a new structure, and these are Greek giganti beans. And what I've done is I've actually got, like here, there's two growing out. I think they were just old seeds, so there were two growing out of one cell. So I'll train one onto this cane and train the other onto the other cane, and vice versa. In the front here, I just put a zinnia in the middle just to add a zin of colour. I've got patio sweet peas growing down here, and then these are claret broccoli, purple sprouting broccoli, so it'll add a nice bit of greenery over winter, and then that'll be a really, really nice harvest. And then coming over here, actually, this here is salsify, and I'm very excited about this. I've always wanted to try it. Apparently it tastes, it's sometimes called the oyster vegetable, because apparently it tastes like oysters, so that'll be most interesting. Second area of onions, and then I've got some broccoli here, tender stem broccoli. This has kind of fallen over a bit, but I do have some replacements. Parsnips, lettuce, cosmos. Man, I love cosmos. Like this pop of colour, it's more of a dwarf variety of cosmos. So many flower heads are coming, and yeah, it's a real pop of colour. I did an Instagram post recently, and it's kind of more of an overhead view of the garden, and people are like, what is that? This is cosmos. It's amazing. Then here I've got a couple of different vines that are starting to grow. I've got Apios americana, groundnut, and also cinnamon vine. Again, struggled because of just such a terrible weather-wise, but some of them are starting to grow. I've got to retie some of these things, but I always have faith when it comes to trying more unusual things and seeing how they come about. And then the peas. Oh, I love peas. So obviously I've got my staple, the Oregon sugar pod. Absolutely delicious. My favourite way to enjoy these are, apart from raw, or like I saw one chef recently who's like, what's your favourite way to enjoy peas? I was like, straight off the pod, and he said, oh, I call that the dirty way. I was like, a bit odd. It is his favourite way as well. I was just like, it's not dirty, it's proper. You know, this is proper food. And then here, these tall, you can see there are two different varieties. This is a Welsh heritage pea variety from Wales Seed Hub called Llanover pea, which I have grown before. And these crate peas are not quite ready yet, but these crate peas are almost the size of field beans. They are huge, they retain their sweetness even when they go over a bit, unlike other ones that go really starchy. And yeah, it's easily my favourite pea variety. Sorry, Oregon sugar pods. Sorry. This is kind of more of one of the perennial corners. I'm trying to perennialise the corners at the moment. So I've got another globe artichoke that I put in this year. So I'm not expecting that much, but next year it's going to be really lovely. Because it's been such a difficult season, I created a planting plan, and because of slugs and poor weather and all these things, I've kind of had to loosely base it off the planting plan, but sometimes change locations. I was going to do the asparagus here, but I've actually done it further up, and that's totally fine. It's like being flexible is a really important part of gardening. Then I've got a lovely mint corner here. These are autumn raspberries, which won't grow that much taller, but a really nice way to occupy this space. And then underneath the autumn raspberries is this beautiful rhubarb patch, which I love it. It's just big dark green leaves and rhubarb. So in this nook we have the rest of the soft fruits. There was a gooseberry sawfly issue, but a lovely harvest of gooseberries, and the gooseberry is going to be just fine. There's new growth. Red currants, strawberries are just coming in now, starting to come in. And then this here is a black currant that did an amazing yield. In total, between two harvests of it, it was just under 3 kilos of black currants from I think this is just a 4-year-old plant, so I'd expect this to get even bigger, so really happy with that. Then here I've got more of my favourite, one of my favourites, I have many favourites, but Cosmos coming through, and I've added in some other things. So hiding behind this will be another zinnia, and then this is chop suey greens, which you can eat the leaves really nice, but I'm also going to let it flower, so I'm kind of utilising it for both as like an edimental in a way. Then here I've got some peas that are starting to grow up this trellis, and this is another bergamot or monarda, so I'm really looking forward to this again becoming another area of colour. Almost in I think every single bed I've got something that is going to add nice colour. On the theme of colour, we've got more nasturtiums. These are just self-sown, so I was like, you know what, I'll let you live. And hiding within it is a yacon, slightly slugged. That's the only issue I've had with yacons, is slugs, but I think it'll be alright. A few more plantings of amaranth, tree spinach, broccoli, Aztec broccoli, just to fill up this space. And then behind here, just put in some spare hollyhocks I had. I don't know what to do with this space, but I'll work something out. And then these here are the massive sunchokes or Jerusalem artichokes that I've had to put a bit of bamboo in just to support them, to stop them flopping over and taking over this whole corner. And the final thing here that's kind of pretty important and is a new addition this year is a worm bin. So this has been already very productive in terms of castings and worm tea, and I use the worm tea for my tomatoes, which I'll show you next. So welcome to the Polytunnel. One bed I'm pretty happy with, the other less so. This is what I've had to replant so many times and I nearly gave up, but the final planting is starting to grow. I've got some really nice peppers in the back. I'm most excited about this. This is lemon drop. I think this is what Sam is most excited about as well. He nods. Tanya cucumber. Not been a good year for my cucumbers, but that's alright. They're starting to grow. This here is the Minnesotan midget melon, which again starting to put on some growth. Nice little nasturtium. I've got some okra in the back, aubergines. This here is a blacktail mountain. I always get it mixed up. Watermelon, and then an apricot in the front. So starting to get together. I am actually going to just mulch this now with grass clippings, just because I'm happy with how things are, just to help retain the moisture. And then in the back here we have lots of different tomatoes growing. This year I have been growing tomatoes slightly differently. I've let the branches continue to grow. Like this here is a tomato that I've actually trained. It's one plant but I've trained onto 2 stems, so essentially it's 2 cordons or 2 tomato plants for the price of 1. And like, look how vigorous this is, and I think part of it is because I allowed so much of the branches to keep on growing to generate all of that energy, that photosynthesis into the roots. Really nice looking tomato plants. The exact same here with Tamand. I've trained it off into 2. And then I'm feeding these every couple of weeks with worm tea, or like a comfrey feed. I've got a little bit of basil underneath. Really happy with that. This here, kept it slightly separate because it's pretty cool and pretty special. This is a Lulu tomato. When I went to visit Penny Edica, she was growing these, and this is where I get the seeds from. And she's getting tomatoes about 1 kilo or 2.2 pounds in weight, which is amazing. And then finally, kind of in the front, we've got sweet corn. I've put in a grapevine, and I've also put in some Bolivian giant ococha. Very soon I'm going to be starting a newsletter where every week I'm going to be collating my top seasonal tips, advice, ideas for each week. So I'll be coming through to your inbox with a bunch of ideas, maybe some other inspiration, just to help you with creating nice productive gardens. So the link is down below, and I hope you enjoyed this pretty comprehensive garden tour.